Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today with my third account I have discovered. Well, discovered might be too strong a word, but I have been using a deck that is really basic. You can create it as long as you have the Witch at Arena 1. All the other cards are in there, and it can get you really up to Arena 5 and really beyond as long as you continue to level these cards up. Now, side note, special offer reward the first time you hit a new arena. Make sure you take advantage of that. If you can get a buck, ask your parents, or if you're an adult, go ahead and maybe, dish it out. It's definitely worth your money as you get a lot of value for that $1. So even if you're free to play, consider maybe doing that, as it is the best way by far to spend your money in this game. Now, my baby Ash profile, you can see here 36 of my 37 wins have been 3 stars using this deck, and let me quickly go through my battle log here. You can see I'm undefeated. Now, I'm not bragging here because truthfully, a lot of these players that I beat to get here are beginners, so, the competition isn't that fierce. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into some live matches, but what I want you guys to get out of today's video is really how to use this deck effectively, so don't pay attention if my opponents aren't the best in the world. Really, what we're going to be focusing on is our side of the arena. I want to get to arena, 6, 7, or even 8 or 9. Honestly, you can really use this deck. It's so balanced and so good. It has the giant. It's a giant beatdown deck, really, is what you'd call this. It's a beatdown archetype, meaning that we want to get a nice stack of troops behind our giant and really impose upon the enemy and really hopefully pull off a lot of 3 crowns like you see in my my battle log. So here you can see the opponent doing something that's not a good idea. Again, guys, the opponents might not be the best in the world. I apologize. I can't control who I'm matched up against here. You certainly don't want to play a bomb tower or any defensive structure in the lane in most case scenarios, especially early on in these arenas. So what I'm going to do is really talk about each card of this deck as I play and kind of talk about when to use them and how to use them to have success, because I want to have you guys really, actually win with this deck instead of commenting that I tried the deck, Ash, and it sucks. I want you guys to have the same success that I've had with the deck. So you can see here, by the way, side note, I do have a lot of gems on this account before I get to the cards. I'm not spending those on the actual cards or chests. I'm going to keep this account in arenas, 3, 4, and 5, and I'm not going to level up my cards too much beyond that. It's my third account, and I'm using the gems to host tournaments, so don't be thrown off by that. It is going to be a total free-to-play account. So what I want to do is start talking about the giant first, because he is the win condition of this deck, meaning he is the card that's going to carry our offense and hopefully be responsible for taking down our opponent's crown towers. So what we want to do is talk about when to play the giant and where to play the giant. The first big no-no is playing the giant immediately at the river, meaning playing him at the halfway mark in the map, the equator, the bridge. You don't want to go ahead and start him out there. The whole point behind this deck is getting these long, big, powerful pushes behind that giant, as you can see I'm doing here pretty easily, to get the 3 crown. So we want to build up an elixir advantage, a big push behind that giant, and the best way to do that is to play our giant behind our king tower when we want to start out a push. Now there's other ways to play the giant as well. You saw actually in that match I did it a few times there, and what you want to do is sometimes you want to defend first. So look at this hand we have here. I'm going to start out with my witch, then I'm going to have to play a knight to distract that giant skeleton. Probably a little bit late on the knight there, but it doesn't look like the giant skeleton's going to get to my tower. Never let a giant skeleton get to your tower. You know what's going to happen. He is going to blow up, or the bomb is going to blow up, and you're going to be out about 1,000 hit points off your tower. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt, so don't do it, guys. But anyway, the giant. The second way to use a giant, as you can see, is the way I just used him there. When your opponent expends a lot of elixir and you have to defend against it, so basically when they hit you with a big push, you're going to have your defensive cards, they're going to survive, like my musketeer just did there. And what you can do is continuously use either the knight or the giant and your defensive card that just survived on defense when you were defending against their push to mount a push of your own, and that's going to be very lucrative in terms of the amount of damage you can do to their tower. Why? Because you have the elixir advantage at that point, and that is most likely, more likely than not, that's going to be how you do the brunt of your damage and how you get these great 3-crown victories with this deck. So what you want to do is, you can see here, I'm going to do a slow push right now. You can see I don't have the giant in my hand, but he's my next card up. So you have to understand your rotation. I'm going to fireball here. We'll talk about the spells in just a moment. But check out this counter push here. It might not be super strong, but I have that musketeer and I have enough elixir just barely to get the giant in there ahead of the musketeer. So I'm going to go ahead and load in some archers here because you can see my giant still basically at half health. So what I want to do, it's very important that I not only do some damage to the tower there, but that I also kill that P.E.K.K.A. and the Valkyrie and the baby dragon. That way they don't come back at me to hurt me. So this deck, it's really important that you know when and where to push, and you don't overcommit yourself on offense. You have to know when to end the push, meaning when to leave a little bit of elixir left to defend on the other lane. You can see here, I had to use the giant to get that giant skeleton away from my tower. Don't be afraid to use a giant in a situation like that where you really have to. And in the other lane, my witch takes down the tower. And you know, I don't want to jinx myself, but I don't think in either of these two matches the opponent has even touched either of my towers, because this deck is really strong defensively as well. You have some splash damage in terms of the witch and of course the bomber. Now the witch can target air, so that's really important, and the bomber obviously does a lot of splash damage to ground units. He's great against barbarians, and he's great to put behind your giant as well. On top of that, you do have the two spells. You have fireball and you have arrows. Arrows are mainly going to be used against spawner decks or against minion hordes, and of course your fireball is mainly going to be used against barbarians, or you can use it against minion hordes as well in a pinch. Obviously both spells can be used, preferably arrows, against goblin barrel or skeleton army as well. When you use your spells, make sure if at all possible you also hit your opponent's crown tower at the same time as you use your spells. I like that this deck has two spells. I never really find myself without an option to counter what my opponent throws at me. Speaking of throwing a lot of stuff at me there, I was able to use my bomber and my witch to take down that hog rider and the goblin barrel coming at me at the same time. Interesting that he used the rage spell. You can see I'm doing exactly what I talked about last match. I'm using my giant in the lane, on the river, on the bridge, as part of a counter push. Now don't use your giant if you can't get him in there before your defending troops. Just go ahead and let your opponent defend against your musketeer and your witch in that case. And it looks like this is going to be the easiest 3-crown of my push so far. It was a very strong counter push there to my opponent. So gonna go ahead and move into the next match here because I didn't really get a chance to talk too much about strategy during that match, and you can see my opponent none too happy with the result. So let's go ahead and jump into another match here. Oh, look at this, a level 1 troll. What do you guys think about these guys? Have you seen any level 1s yet? Level 1s, it's kind of a thing that a lot of people do just for fun, really, is starting a second account, and sometimes they buy legendaries. We'll have to see if this guy has any, but what they do is they keep their tower at level 1 and then they try to see how far they can get in the game. A lot of people hate this and some people really love it, so I'm kind of indifferent. It doesn't really bother me, but it should be a pretty easy win for us. So I'm gonna try to go ahead and get a 3-crown on this push right here. That fireball is not gonna do a lot of damage to my witch there. I'm gonna go ahead and put a bomber, so I have a lot of splash here, and that works out beautifully because he counters with a skeleton army. That's why we love the splash in this deck, guys, and everything he counters with right now is just more elixir that he's spending for no use, really, because my giant is just hammering away and I keep replenishing my supporting units on the back of the stack in the lane there. So there it is, another 3-crown against, you know, a level 1. Nothing to write home about necessarily, but we'll go ahead and play one more match because there are a few things that I want you guys to know about before I let you go in this video. So number 1 is, what if you don't have the witch? You know, you are given a random epic card to start the game. Maybe you're in arena 1, 2, or 3 and you don't have the witch yet, or maybe you're even in arena 4 and somehow you don't have the witch. But basically, if you don't have the witch, you can kind of get by with a skeleton army if you're lucky enough to have that. If you don't have the skeleton army, you know, you could really go with a bunch of options there. You could use baby dragon in that splash damage role, or you could go ahead and just switch things up and use a mini P.E.K.K.A. behind the giant. You really have a lot of options there. Even a prince would work, but there is different tactics that maybe I'll go ahead and cover in a future video, just if you don't have the witch. But honestly, I think the witch is the best fit in this deck. The witch absolutely dominates in these low to mid-level arenas. And while I'm going on this monologue here about arenas and witches and whatever, I took a lot of damage on my right tower there, so I think he's going to get my tower down, and hopefully I can make the comeback and prove another great thing about this deck, and that is it's great. Beatdown decks are the best decks in the game for making come-from-behind victories, so never give up if you're playing this deck, guys. This rocket here is going to take down both my witch and my tower. That was a good rocket on his part. I know he's low on elixir, so I'm going to try to chip away at his right tower a little bit more here. He plays the minion horde, so that means he doesn't have any elixir left. My giant's going to actually get 4 or 5 hits or 3 hits on that tower, so maybe not the best idea, maybe a little bit too aggressive with that push here. We're only halfway through the match, so all I have to do is defend here and then hopefully get a nice counter push. So I use my knight to distract that prince. A knight is basically like a secondary tank in this deck. You need that other, you know, kind of a hardy card, a meat shield, a lot of HP, and it does a decent amount of damage too. So if you don't have 5 elixir on one of these counter pushes, that's when you can use your knight to kind of lead the way in place of the giant while you cycle back. So let me talk really quickly before I let you guys go, and hopefully while I make this comeback here, you can see I'm getting my giant in the lane, and my witch should be clear of that giant bomb. Come on, witch. Oh, yes, she made it. That was awesome. Okay, so this is going to be a really strong push here, and he plays the giant. That was a big mistake because I'm totally going to 3-crown him at this point here. I'm just going to load up another witch in the lane. But what I want to talk to you guys about is how to deal with Inferno Towers or really tough counters. You can see 3-crown going to be accomplished in just a second here. But how to deal with Inferno Towers. It's really important that you understand your opponent's rotation. That means if they play a hard counter to your card, such as an Inferno Tower, you want to count the number of cards that they play after that Inferno Tower. Once they play 4 cards, the Inferno Tower is back in their hand. So make sure, as an attacker with a beatdown deck, you want to take advantage of this and try to play your giant at a time when the Inferno Tower is not in their hand. So that's how you beat counters, basically, in this game. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, kind of focusing in again on lower arena levels. I know I have a lot of viewers, and not all of you are pro players in Legendary Arena. I hope you appreciate this type of content. I want to know, guys, do you like it? Do you want more mid-level arena content? Let me know what arena you're in, and hopefully I'll create a deck or cater to the needs of your area in the game. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.